I want to bring all of them up, and I'm going to be introducing them. So our moderator today is going to be Thomas, coming from the Banga office. And a full stack developer here at Traton 37. Thanks, Thomas. And then up next, I'm going to invite Niclas on stage. One of our front-end developers here at Traton 37. And then I'm going to have Johannes.
Yay!
A UX designer here at Traton 37. And then I'm going to have actually Christian come up. Not only is Christian a front end, but he's also a UI designer. And finally, we have Tobias. And Tobias is one of our product designers here at Traton 37. So today, this panel is going to be discussing a topic that's quite near and dear to my heart as a product manager prior to my new role here, and that is, how to increase efficiency between front end and UX and design. So I'm not going to say anything more because I want the panel to take over. So Thomas, I'll hand the mic over to you and kick us off.
Thank you. All right, thank you for the introduction. I was thinking about going about this like Jerry Springer, but I got toned down. So I'm just gonna jump right in with the first question. And are you ready, guys?
Yep.
I guess. Cool. So what are the most common challenges that arise in the collaboration between UX design teams and front-end development teams? And Johannes?
If you're answering the questions as it's written, I would say not being in the same team is an issue to start with, because you cannot communicate as well if you're in separate teams. So that would be the first thing that is a great challenge, I think, if you cannot communicate.
Yeah, communication for sure.
Yeah. So how do we solve that? Tobias?
Hard thing to solve.
An answer to this.
Yeah, because I think all of the problems in development teams when it comes to problems in between designers and developers is related to communication. So in terms of prioritization, understanding each other, that's all communication issues. And as we talked about before, that could be language related, that we're not speaking the same language, both Swedish English, or it could be you talk in RAM, I talk in pixels, etc. But how we should solve it, that's
that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or not, or just, I don't know, discuss it.
Yeah. Christian, do you have any input?
I think as everyone says, it's more very much about communication. Could be like Tobias mentioned, talking in different units, not having the shared language between designers and developers. Could also be you work in silos. That's a big problem. Could be getting all the design beforehand. And like Eric mentioned, the waterfall model is if you're doing that,
it's not going to work. Yeah, it's not going to work. But you're all talking about communication, and the problems with it. But how can front-end developers or developers and designers get to speak the same language? I mean, I'm talking RAM. Oh, yeah, but I don't know even what that is. How do we bridge that gap?
I think there's you need to respect the other professional. That is a first thing, understanding that they are probably doing the implementation because it's easier or better in this way. The design looks like this because there's a real problem that we need to solve, and the design is actually figured out to solve a problem. And not respecting each other, that you're actually trying your best, hopefully, of course. Get on the understand each other to that they are actually trying to do something good, and you never a designer doing something to make issues or create issues for a front-end developer. That would be very stupid, in my opinion. So getting on a respectful level, respect the other professional.
Okay, but Niclas, have you ever witnessed this the designer doesn't understand you, and you're like, you're just stupid, or how did you overcome that? Do you have any war stories around that?
Yeah, I was in a project a long time ago, and it was very much like a downward model. And that person had then designed the whole application, and she thought it was like her baby, sort of. And when I entered the project, because I did it afterwards, I was not involved in the beginning of the project. And so I took it over, and the first thing I do, as I always do, is like, okay, I start naming things and see if there are inconsistencies. And yeah, of course, you mentioned, like, you notice inconsistencies in the design. And yeah, so I started to destroy her design, kind of, in her opinion. So I just moved stuff around and like changed the pixels in between or whatever unit it was. And yeah, so I was in for a ride when I started doing that, because then when I came back to her and like, oh, so I changed a few things. And I was like, you changed a few things? I was like, yeah, I just put some comments and I changed the bits in between so they're equal, and this doesn't really work out to do it this way, so I just figured we could do it this way instead. And yeah, she was not pissed, but she was not like a very happy person at the moment. So I realized that was quite early in my career, and I was like, okay, this is not going to work. So the next time I'm doing this, I'm going to be sitting right next to the designer and actually talk to whoever is doing the design and during the actual development of the design, and see that we have a tight communication from the start. So yeah, something like that, just sit right next to them and see, to make sure that we are doing the right thing from the beginning, from both sides and not only in one of them.
Yeah.
Right, so your solution is more like, let's sit together and do this. And
Yeah.
Johannes, you were talking about silos, that yeah, we got a design team here and you cannot communicate with them. Is that common?
Yeah,
or?
please never communicate with any designer. It's a terrible thing. Yes, sit in the same room. It can be as simple as that. Of course, maybe that's not possible, but I was thinking about this topic earlier today, and like meeting once a week, that doesn't cut it. You need to be interactive with the people you're working with, and not only in the same domain. I mean, we're trying to solve something here. We have a challenge, and we are. Everyone is trying their best to actually get this to a better state. And as I said earlier, why would anyone want to make anything harder for their colleague? And if you're in the different teams, then like start to get to know the other team, get to understand like there are people in this team. Cool. You can talk to them, you can hang out with them, and then start to understanding the problem together, the challenge.
Yeah, me and Christian, we worked together in the Mitsubishi project, and like initially we worked a lot remote and tried to communicate like on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis. But as soon as we start working together at the office, like sitting next to each other, that improved things like drastically, I would say.
Those sessions was definitely so productive for us. Like it increased the productivity so much just sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're on a remote team as well. Like everyone in our team was like sitting from home basically. But yeah, we saw each other a couple of times, and those days were like super productive every time. So
we can just like reach out to you across the table instead of having to write in Slack and like, do you have 5 minutes? And then like, no, I'm in a meeting and gonna go wait for 2 hours, and you're like stuck.
Yeah,
Toilet break.
Exactly. And I can code the same thing that you're designing in the same time and say, hey, do you have an opinion on this? I saw a little bit of, this doesn't really add up to how we did things in the past, and like it's so much faster. So that is key, I would say.
Yeah, and I think like remote work is good. We shouldn't remove it, but still like sitting together is crucial.
Yeah.
And I think the same goes.
I think we might have a question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Go on.
Because I think that this topic of remote, like working from different locations and working together is a really quite a hot topic, and it's as you say, it's very difficult. Do you have like tips or things that were helpful when you worked remote that allowed for a more productive and efficient co-working situation?
Yeah, I would say like keep a conversation ongoing all the time. Like don't wait for each other. Like have a Slack channel up and ask questions all the time. Whenever you find something, don't wait with to gather all the questions. Just write them and have that conversation ongoing all the time.
Yeah, and build the trust. Of course, it's easy to say build trust, but spend time together so that you actually say, like, I don't think this will work, and you will not get offended because you actually know that they want the best of the product instead of smashing on someone's decision. We always have at our team always try to involve the remote person in some way with a video meeting always on. We don't say much. Sometimes there's silence for 1 hour, but you can always do the like pinch shoulder technique, but remotely. So that will be my, I totally agree with you. Like having a conversation going, if it's possible with audio.
Yeah, that's probably even better.
Yeah, that's probably the best. Video is fun, but not mandatory.
Yeah. And I think it's also important, like it's not only about design, it's like we're solving problems.
Yeah.
So we should involve as many people as possible, like in the problem solving phase all the time. And do that like in the research discovery phase as well. To get more people to listen to like what is the main problem and how can we solve that collaboratively. So I don't come up with a solution that I try to present to you. And then it's like, yeah, it's not technically feasible, or it's going to be problematic in this and this and this way. Like instead, when problem solving, we can work together and come up with like multiple solutions that are feasible and the best possible solution to the problem.
Yeah, and also using tools like Figma, for example, because you have the multi-cursor feature, and having that with like Discord or something that is always open, as you said before. So we always have like some board to doodle on, and like, okay, I'm thinking like this, and it's always there in the background, so it feels like you're sitting next to them.
And then you can communicate not only with words.
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
also,
Most of us are like visual, so yeah, definitely.
Yeah, developers are you kind of whiteboarding things. I guess when it comes to design, you were talking about Figma. Are there other tools that could help visualize, like prototyping things together?
Pen and paper.
Pen and paper.
Yeah.
Pen and paper.
Always the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tobias?
Yeah, I would say same thing. And also like you're always borrowing design ideas from other sites or apps. Just like you can take a screenshot of that and just like send that. Is this something we could adapt as well? To get some sort of like quick feedback.
Ellen, you have a question?
Yeah. Yes, not a question, but maybe more something I'm wondering about. Being a backend developer, not involved in frontend much, you talk about collaboration and you want one side to understand the realities of the other side. You want developers to understand the challenges of UX and vice versa. Does it happen that you like get too far into the other person's domain? Like the developer is thinking like, why are you telling me where to put my pixels? Or the UX designer thinks, why are you telling me like how to break this down into components? How do you divide, like draw the line between responsibilities? This is mine, don't step on my toes.
I have a take on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said something about respect earlier.
Yeah, and I would never tell Christian how to like implement things, but we are solving the problem together. So I would definitely I would give my opinion on how can we solve this the best way. But I don't do much functional programming. I don't know the logics. You're the pro in this, but I would definitely see it that we solve the problem together. And I don't mind like if you says no, I did this once, that doesn't work. I think I would definitely listen because that's experience. That sounds okay. Let's go for it. Let's try it. Does that answer your question? Kind of, Helen?
I think it's more of like it could also be like depending on prioritization. Like we've been through this a lot. Like you made a brilliant design, but we're on a time schedule, and I can see that okay, this looks really great. It would be great for the user, but if we tweak it this way, we could implement it in 2 days instead of 2 weeks. And I don't see that as pushing down on your design, but it's like solving the problem together faster as well. And maybe you say, no, we can't do it that way because we need to do it this way for the user. But yeah, it's communication and compromise.
Yeah, it's really important. Yeah. And I think like one project I worked in before, we had this thing with syncing data between the mobile and the desktop, and that was an issue because we worked with a low-code tool. So they couldn't really do it, but I was like, we need to, this is like really important, we need to have it synced continuously instead of they having to sync the data manually, because that resulted in a massive loss of data all the time and very frustrated users. So like, I think in that case, it was important to do the harder solution, so to say.
So what I hear from your discussion is like, it all comes down to trust, that each part knows their job and you need to rely on each other, right? But when we look at, we have been talking about like front-end and designers. What can companies and organizations do to help this goal, more collaboration and working more together? Do you have any ideas, Niclas?
Yeah, I mean, just being open, I would start there to not have some kind of strict rules. We need to use the waterfall model. So,
But we do, right?
Yeah, but I'm like, we need to have more openness in about doing different stuff and be open to new things. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I think I kind of lost the question while talking.
No worries.
I spun away a little bit.
But the question was more like how the companies and organizations can facilitate this going forward. You were talking about everything.
Yeah, no, but being open and the company should not always continue on the same path as they've done before. Like, can we try this out? Yes, let's do that for this project. It's very new, but let's try it. It's one project. We're not going to go down under because of one project, hopefully. So yeah, trying out different approaches to the problem and see like, okay, how can we actually solve this communication issue?
Yeah.
And can we sit right next to each other all the time, or do we have to sit apart, and can we find some different tools, or yeah, something like that.
I also think like when it comes to budget and expectations in a project, because like oftentimes there's a team of developers and there's one designer, and the developers are expected to develop stuff all the time. They're not expected to take part in like the discovery process. And if like the company or organization is not aware of that, like we're going to have 2 developers that are going to work maybe 25-50% on discovery during a couple of months, then I think they're going to be not too happy that they sacrifice like in development time. So there's maybe a shift in how we're thinking when it comes to projects and design and development, that we all need to collaborate on the problem solving there.
But do you believe that if the developers would be more involved in the design process during the whole project, would the company benefit for that, or is it waste of time?
I think that would be very good. Me and Johannes took a course a couple of weeks ago at NNG related to discovery, and they said like I think it was 76% of the projects that have like a proper discovery end up being like proper good projects that succeed, and like it was not the same result for projects that had a bad discovery or didn't have a discovery at all. And they also recommended like we should have not only one designer doing the discovery, we should have a team of people and at least like a developer. And yeah,
I think one very good benefit from that is that you as a developer get more empathy for the end user as well. Like usually you get stuck in the technical parts and you focus more on that. But if you get more empathy for the end user, you will see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, I see there's a lot of questions, but I think this is the solution, and I will continue talking about this when we have answered questions.
Yep. Sorry, I'm not paying attention to the crowd. I'm listening to these.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know.
You talk into the...
Okay. I actually like this part of the discussion very much because I've been at the conference a few years back, and there was a representative from Salesforce. You know, she was one of the people who developed their Lightning design system. It's like I think it was one of the first like really elaborate design systems with React components and all those kind of things. And she talked a lot about bridging the gap between design and developers by involving designers more into coding and actually teaching them how to code and build prototypes themselves. So I just wanted to ask you to elaborate on your experience and your projects when this was actually implemented. Because, for instance, I worked in Viaplay, and the design team was very far removed from the coding process, and the communication gap was quite large between us. However, it was still working out, but there I started to really remember that moment at the conference. So I just wanted to know your experiences on that.
Johannes?
I'm lucky to know code. I'm not very, as I said, I could not work with this full time, but I know coding, and that's have been a huge part of just speaking the same language as we talked about earlier. I even push sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, come at me. Yeah, but seriously, it's a great benefit knowing, and I have great teammates that want to. They already know a lot about the UX domain, but they want to learn more and have an openness towards the collaboration between the domains. But yet, knowing some coding and have been working with it before coming to 13 helps a huge amount for me, at least, in our team.
Yeah, and tools like Framer, that one is like you design in it and you also do some kind of coding part. I'm not like good at it. I've used it a few times, but there you have the coding part of it as well. So that kind of opens that up so the designer can spark the interest like by themselves. And then you could, I think they can even export components for like as React components. So using tools that encourage coding, I think that's a big part of it as well, to just open up that door.
And to come back to your question about like having teams with that is far away from you, I'm lucky enough to usually I'm my own designer, so communication between developer and designer isn't a problem since it's all in my head. I can't really answer any experience about like working with design teams that's really far away, but I can assume that it's way more frustrating and like challenging.
Yeah.
If we turn the question around, I mean, we've been talking about how designers should learn how to code. Could there be any benefits from like coders to learn more of design?
For sure.
Tobias?
I think so.
I think so too. We're talking a lot about design here. UX is the thing, for me at least. And we were talking about discovery earlier, and learning the user needs and understanding the user, understanding the target audience, understanding why we need to solve things. Please, everyone, participate in user research. I think that is what makes so much things so much easier. If developers, tech is always present. When we're trying to be using continuous discoveries at our team and really always involving product design and tech. Someone from tech all the time, because the benefit of understanding first-hand information from users, and like when I say, you know, they use super large screens with like this massive resolution, but they have this scale that is huge and they can't see our app. They can't see it. Like, no, why wouldn't you just change the resolution? Because they don't know. And they think I'm silly if I'm saying so myself, but being in a Teams meeting where we're doing a usability test or even just helping a customer, we realize tech, yeah, of course, it sounds like my team doesn't listen to me, which is kind of true. No, it's not true. But seeing it firsthand, that's the thing. Getting firsthand information and not only talking about pixels and RAMs and things, understanding what the user actually is about. That is...
Isn't it like the old saying that if you could have the best software in the world, but if no one knows how to use it, it won't get used. So
very much so.
Yeah. We have a question here from Mr. Mats.
Mr. Mats.
You need to speak.
So when the communication is already broken when you start a project, what can you actually do to improve it? How do you approach, in my case, then the designer who is impossible with different margins everywhere, the colors is almost identical, but not exactly identical, and there's no component library, there's basically everything wrong in the communication. Where do you start?
Maybe Pontus can get him another assignment or something. I don't know.
And it's not now, but I've been in this situation like a lot of times.
Yeah, I think it comes back to
Communication,
having
yes.
a shared language.
Yeah, but when it's already broken from the beginning, the designers always sit in their office,
but
design the complete picture and then just hand it over and then be pixel perfect when margins is different in each and every view.
Yeah.
Dissect it, like break it apart and make it yours.
Like you did.
Yeah, I mean, you should do that, and that should be fine.
What you do, but then you break the communication even more.
No, you should do it like respectfully, not like I did it. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, how do you do that respectively?
like changing all the colors that are almost the same.
Yeah.
I don't think that person would notice if you take a screenshot. I changed this, and we're like, okay.
They do.
Okay, but then take a discussion with that person and say, hey, we have 58 blue. Can we change it down to 8?
Yeah.
Maybe. Or otherwise, take it upstairs.
But for me, it sounds like an issue with the designer in this case. But I'm as a developer doesn't always understand the design phase. But how would you like me to approach you with that? Like you have 58 different colors. Which one is it?
Sounds like a very stubborn person, not respecting your talents, and you probably done a couple of systems by now. And if I were that designer, being stubborn, hopefully like talking about experience and talking why, like if we change all these blue colors into one, because your hex codes are slightly off here and here and here, show them the benefit of using some sort of frame to work with instead of like just the whole palette. Of course, a design system, if it's possible to make, that takes hours and hours and hours and weeks and months and forever. But if that's possible, of course. But sitting next to each other and talk about it instead of, I don't know how it was in that assignment, if he or she was remote. But anyways, if that's possible, like you can explain to that person that I get issues coding this when you are giving me this. So can we collaborate on some sort of more streamlined way of working? Easy to say, but that's my approach, I think.
And maybe give something back. Like, if you change this, I'll give you dark mode as well. But like, because if you do that, that opens up the opportunity for me to actually like do the niceness of everything. So then you give something back. And people like receiving gifts.
I think Andre also had a question, right?
It was kind of asked already, but I was just wondering if you guys can design systems.
Hold on. You need to get a microphone.
All right. I was wondering what you guys think about design systems. Can those help at all with a problem? Can they improve communication, creating common mental models? Or is it only for designers?
I think design systems are amazing. And like, especially when it's implemented correctly. I know Johannes has been working in the Sortera project with, is it Figma Token Studios, it's called?
Yeah.
Which seems amazing, where you can push like changes when it comes to colors and border radius and et cetera, a lot of things. You can explain more about that.
Yeah, basically tokens. you can get one single source of truth in more or less the design system if you use it in Figma or if you use it some other tool. I think it's just great because you align on a single source of truth and everyone work from that. And the great thing with that tool is that I can push to the repo the changes in this design system all the time. And you've seen it, André, and we talked about it a little bit. But then again, a design system does not solve understanding why you're building this. And that's, before even start talking about design system, please talk about how you collaborate on getting aligned on why the user need things. Said it again.
Okay, I think we need to. Do we have another question or a follow-up? Yeah.
I think we jumped just a little bit ahead of a really good question. I think, what is design system?
Excellent question. Tobias, could you elaborate?
Yeah, sure. Design system is like a component library. You have all the components. You also have everything when it relates to spacing, color, border radiuses, how the design should be structured, more or less. And I guess that transfers to design tokens as well.
Is it like a template or?
It's like the
guidelines.
One single source truth for like how the design should be built and created, and also be used for designers. Like if you add a new designer to the project, they should use the design system also to understand, like, if I'm adding a component, how should that be structured and designed? How should the padding be? How should we have a border, for example, on this? Or how are things going to work?
And I think what's usually confusing there's so many different words for this. All right. And we have like design patterns. We have design tokens. We have component libraries, for example. Which I see component libraries as way bigger, and that is not as important to have. But like design system with like colors, spacings, border radius, and all that, like having that all shared is gives you a lot of benefits. Not saying you have to use a component library, because I hate them. But having all that set is crucial.
Yeah, and I think it's important to set that also like early in the project, because otherwise it's gonna crash the entire Figma file and project unless you start with it instantly.
Yeah. Let's not deep dive in that can of worm, because design systems, there are a lot of opinions around that. I think we need to talk about how can organizations measure the success of improved collaboration between. Do you have any thoughts about?
I mean, just seeing how the progress. I mean, it's really hard, of course, because it's very soft. But you can have like a survey. Like, how did you feel about this project? Did it feel good? And then that is from like all the sides, the project manager or product something, and then the designer and the developer and everyone, so they can be involved and actually like rate it. That is like the most simple way, I guess. But then also see how the project felt in the end. That like, did it succeed? And did the user think it was a good product once it was built? That is also very hard, but I think it's also a good thing to measure. And then you do that for each project, and slowly you will see some kind of data on it, but it will probably take a long time. So short term, was it good? Yes or no?
Would you say like the benefits, is it more of soft values, or is it like cash values? What do you think in the end is most beneficial? Like, are the team satisfied? It was a great project, or?
I think it could increase speed of the project as well, so probably monetize a little bit.
I think it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. I think another way you can like track it is like, how many emails have you sent to this design department instead of like direct communication via audio or like chat messages. You can track like bugs, design bugs For example, like, do they increase or decrease when you switch approach? Yeah, so there's definitely some things you can track as well.
All right.
I don't know if it's possible to track how many times you rebuild things, but if that's possible, I think you would probably see a pretty much better view of the component, the feature, the whatever, if you actually were close to each other from the start. But how do you measure it? I don't know. But if you can, I bet it will be better if you work close together.
Yeah,
Okay,
I guess that's
yeah.
going to show us frustration as well, and will probably come up during retros. So like, at each retro, if you have like tons of things you need to rebuild and redo all the time, I think that's going to come down to the communication being bad, and that you have to do something about it. So yeah.
All right. But Tobias, if Pontus is out meeting a customer, a potential customer, how would he motivate that one of the developers will only spend 50% coding? How would he sell that?
I would probably phrase it as that it's going to improve the efficiency in the project, and also like align the team in a better way, and allowing the team to like take decisions that are going to push the project in the right direction, and avoid doing mistakes that are going to be costly. So yeah, I think motivating it to a customer, I think we can really push on the monetary value, I would say.
Okay. But in the same spirit of question, if you have a real code monkey, how do you get him to, like, you need to sit 50% with the designer or UX? How do you sell that to him? Like,
Start with a workshop.
yeah?
Yeah, because I love workshops. I mean, starting with a workshop, so then you get everyone involved. So I have everyone from the team in the workshop, so everyone understands what everyone is trying to do. And yeah, because then you need to get interactive as well, and touch on each part, so everyone has something to say usually. And so yeah, everyone gets heard, and it's interactive, and you get to sketch, and yeah, it's fun.
I think I never had the chance to try this, but a great way to get everyone involved, like in the product team, or pretty many people can join a session like this, where you present maybe a challenge or how things worked before, or maybe a view of a screen recording of something, and then you ask team that you're talking to, what do you think the user did here? And you can take points. You can do a lot of different things here. Like, people can bet on different ways the user went, and yeah, but the user would definitely do this. And you start the recording, start the video, and show what happened, and it gets like, oh wow, how can the user be that stupid? You know, it's about our system, but anyways, so being in a session where you can like present and make things fun about the usability of things, and make the system pretty much criticize your own system, but with everyone, then everyone gets aligned, hopefully, around why, oh, we really need to do something about that, because that didn't work. And you can do a lot of different things, showing what happened when you have recordings, or just like explaining different things where users interacted with your system. But it's very strong to have something recorded, or an interview where you can say like, no, I never knew how to book a ticket on SAS, so I always went to Skyscanner and choose SAS instead, because that's so much easier. If you're working on SAS, that's a problem, I believe. So getting those stories, and getting especially like the hard the actual video recording or audio recording of things is a very good thing too.
Okay. We have a lot of questions here, and I think we're touching on everyone. We're like jumping from there to there to there. But what are some considerations when forming cross-functional teams that include members from both UX design and Frontend? How can you strike the right balance in team composition? And if audience have anything to chip in here, you're free to do so. Otherwise, Christian?
Yeah, I would say if you have like 2 developers or like 2 front-end developers on a team and a designer, should probably aim for one that is more like JavaScripty and one that is more into like HTML, CSS, more the visual parts, and also know some JavaScript, of course. But getting one of each, I would say, is beneficial, because usually that visual developer could act as a link between the designer and the rest of the developers.
Like a translator or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If you're not sharing the same languages, yeah, that's usually also been working in my projects as well. So,
Tobias, do you agree, or do you have any other takes?
Yeah, I would agree. But then, I don't know, like adding more designers to a project, how that's going to work. I've never worked like with many designers in a project. Maybe some of you designers out here. But I've been thinking, like, is that going to affect my design as well? Because as a solo designer, I've always been fully responsible for the Figma, and if someone comes in and starts nitpicking in my stuff, I don't know if I would be happy or annoyed or what would happen. Hopefully I would be happy.
You should try being a developer.
Yeah.
yeah, but that's an interesting thought, because I know, like, because every designer wants to put their touch on the design. So would be interesting to see, like, two designers in the same team, like if both were doing visual design, how would that work? And I guess it works in large companies with large design organizations, but I've never been in one of those projects, so I don't know really how they do it.
So what you're saying is we have two small projects, or?
I don't know.
No. I mean, if you put two designers, I could be Jerry Springer and like, here's a knife, do something. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we got a couple of minutes left. When going from one person in a role to two, could that potentially change the balance? And you were touching that a little bit, but Johannes, do you have any more input on that?
Of course, it will affect the balance, and I guess every developer that needs to share a repo with someone else also needs to make some sort of structure to make it work. And if me and Tobias were to work together sometimes, I really hope, we will of course need to like discuss the role of each of each other, and we can definitely be responsible of things, both of us. But of course you should not do like strict only UI design while I do this exact same thing. Why would I? Like, we should collaborate on things, and yeah, it will affect the balance, but doesn't it always when you add more people? Like one chef, what is the saying? one chef, what is it? But it works. I mean, there's usually like a handful of developers on every product from what we are selling, like when we're selling people, consultants to products. So.
But I think that the main difference is that if we style our code differently, it's not like affecting the user in any part, but the visual design is more like visible for the user, so it could be a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And then a design system hopefully helps, and aligning around that. So before actually shipping something, decide on how things should work. Like its components isn't that strange or difficult when you actually just decide on how, like, this thing do this, and we decide on that. If we're tweaking it, then we all need to agree on it and understand why. But yeah, totally. Like, code is not visible for users, so it's a challenge.
Yeah, okay. I mean, as developer, we tend to have like a lead developer that sets the standards for this is how we should code this. Does something the same exist when it comes to design? You have, I know I've seen it like lead designer. What is the difference in that role between just a designer? Is it like, I made this and you should copy it, or how does it work?
I would say that the lead designer is not as hands-on, but leading the team of designers. But Tobias, maybe you can add.
Yeah, I think that could be one way of interpreting the role. But I think also, like in our case, I think both of us are lead designers in our projects, but that's because we're one man design team. So we're leading ourselves. But yeah, I think in that case we are responsible for all things that are design related. So that's both like the UX, the UI, maintaining the design system, everything. And that is fun, but it is also demanding. And I don't know, I guess that's not the role for the lead developer to do like all the stuff. That would be stressful. Yeah.
All right. Do we have any questions from the audience? Because if I continue with the next question, I think we will never leave here. But let's see here. That was just who we are. That's good to know. 1 hour in, oh, who am I? Okay, last question now. What strategies can team employ when UX design and front-end teams have conflicting priorities or tight deadlines? And how can they find common ground? I'm thinking like maybe, we have a deadline on Friday. We need to change the margins on everything. That could be a potential issue, I guess. How would you go forward with that? Maybe
I would not change the margins because that doesn't affect the usability.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Or if you have a design system, you could just like, okay, change that number from an 8 to 10. So having a design system, I mean, when I always look at Material UI for like, if I need to improve my coding skills or thinking design, anything, I always look at Material UI because I think they've done a great job of visualizing it and also building it. So, and there you have like spacing, you have your breakpoints, you can just change it in one place and you have it everywhere.
But I think, again, like taking that discussion with the design, like if we do it this way, it would increase the development time or decrease.
We say, and having that conversation is like that. We do that all the time in our team, and it's like neat things are great, but of course, margin can affect the usability. I was joking, but if like strict visual things, a deadline on that, is it why is that? Like, is it because we're presenting it to Apple for them to buy the thing? Yes, that is probably important then, but shipping it to 1,000 users that will now see something differently because it's our new branded blue. I don't know. As a designer, I think these things we shouldn't get stuck in things like this. It's really important to understand what is the deadline about and the holistic view of it. Of course, I want neat things, but I want usable things first and foremost. So taking the discussion, if this change is actually increasing something that we know will solve something, then yes, I will fight for this change before Friday. But otherwise, you should do it on Monday.
Let it go. Next sprint.
Next sprint.
All right. I think that's it. If you don't have any more.
Use design systems.
Yeah.
And workshops.
And please ask a very criticizing question. Criticize something we said. If you want to, don't be afraid to think different. Yeah. Anyone having like a war story that...
Yes. If it's not about the universe and...
Yeah, hello. Yeah. It might be.
Okay.
But let's see. No, but I think one like criticism against like user experience and research is that, okay, you can always find out more. So you cannot take a decision until you actually have found out that more. And it never ends. And then you could have like a sponsor or someone, a decision maker at the client that he or she is like, okay, I know what I want to do, just do it. And how do you navigate that, and how do you tackle those type of situations as designers?
I think it's always like you need to balance between business goals and user needs and like, time and budget, all that.
Are you talking in terms of like a client from hell, like it's got to be like this and you know it's wrong, or was that the question, and how you handle that?
It could be a quite normal client, I think. So because I mean, obviously, there's a huge value in user experience. We all agree on that, I hope. So how do you take that? How do you argue for that value and put it on the right balance to also give, more or less reach the business goals?
Johannes, in 2 sentences.
Bring the stakeholder with you in research and next sentence. Try to, if that's not possible, show some sort of evidence where we fail.
All right. Okay, 2 words.
Yeah. Also, budget, very important. But there's been, as they said on the course, many projects on deadline that has been super failures. So I wouldn't say deadline is the most important part, but understanding the problem, and that might require a few extra weeks in that case. So balance. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. That's all, folks. Kom nu. Vi måste buga.
Ja, buga.
Woo!